Welcome in, collective. Grand Rising. I'm just going to go ahead and hop straight into this topic with very little time wasted in the beginning here. Okay. This is basically a continuation from our last live that we did about gang stalking and why it happens, from my perspective, why it happens. So today's topic is going to be about the same thing, which is gang. You can see it right here. Okay. I don't want to say it too much because TikTok likes to block the live. But anyway, this is going to be a breakdown of what gang stalking is and targeted individuals, and then what I call frequency psychosis. I've already talked about gang stalking and sonic warfare on my YouTube. I was live on TikTok too, but it's on my YouTube if you want to watch that video as well. But welcome in. It's Lady Isis, the spiritual detective. My name is the same across all platforms. I'm usually on TikTok or YouTube. So if you want to go subscribe to my YouTube channel, you could do that as well. Don't forget to check the description for anything that I have going on in regards to like products that I sell, which will be my healing trauma ebook or anything else. Everything is going to be referenced in the description boxes on YouTube if you go to YouTube. Other than that, TikTok has my links in my bio. If you want to make a donation anytime, you want to get a reading, anything of that nature, everything is linked in the description. Okay? But nonetheless, we're going to get into the topic here really quick. Make sure I get to my right notes. Somebody sent the gift. If you sent the gift, thank you. If I missed it, I'm not sure. So let's start with the meaning of the multi-dimensional meaning of the word gang, the term gang, okay? And I think that's pretty much going to give us the foundation as we build on this topic, okay? I'm not going to pay too much to the comments. I'm just going to do my thing, okay? So, multidimensionally, and which I think is important that we understand the meaning of gang, okay? So, I think most people understand gang stalking from a very 3D level mind, okay? Obviously, it means a group of individuals acted together, usually with a negative intent. That's what most people think, okay? But I believe it has a deeper meaning beyond just a group with a shared intent moving in like a coordinated type of behavior, or what we may call a hive mind, right? Like in the Matrix, it's often weaponized to describe like a collective intimidation, domination, control, or some sense of like territory or power that's directed towards you, which most people will call themselves a targeted individual. And I feel that all of us are technically targeted individuals because war is being waged on everybody daily in any system of control, right? So that could be the workplace, the government, quote unquote, which literally means mind control. And then you may feel that same type of feeling when you're driving or when you're out, or just like, just targeted, like this force, of like power, dominance, or bullying is directed towards you. Okay. But to me, that's very surface level. So we're just going to dive a little deeper into the etymology of gang. So gang means to go, to walk, or going together. Excuse me, y'all. I'm drinking some tea, so it's making me burp. Excuse me. So at the root, it means a movement, a formation, direction, a collective behavior, okay? Which is important because energy does move in groups. It's a current, it's a field, right? So gang is a unit of consciousness moving in a formation. So energetically, a gang is a cluster of a frequency signatures that operates as a organism. So this could be a physical people. Okay, it could be astral entities. It could be emotional projections. It could be thought forms, egregores, ancestral patterns, okay, as well. In a multidimensional sense, which is basically spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, physically, ethereally, basically every multidimensional plane, okay? Gangstalking can occur. Or the feeling of this hive mind force that we perceive as a threat can occur, okay? But we're going to get a little bit into the quantum physics of it too, and how we perceive things. But right now I'm just breaking down the meaning of gang multidimensionally, okay? So a field of consciousness with a shared agenda, basically. So psychologically, and you know what? A field of consciousness could be benevolent. It could be malevolent. Okay. It could be neutral. It just depends on the frequency. Okay. So this is why we're talking about frequency psychosis as well, and how there's a pipeline between gang stalking and frequency psychosis. Okay. So psychologically, gang means a collective identity that overrides individual identity. So groupthink, hive mind. Group pressure, shared emotional states, okay, shared frequencies, okay. Usually gang behavior is predictable, it's repetitive, it's ritualistic, it's tribal. So it's kind of like to know one of them, you kind of know all of it. It's the same feeling. It's the same energetic blueprint, if you will, okay. So it's basically a survival-minded formation of a energy, okay? It's survival-rooted, though. It's fear-based, okay? So in society, or in a matrix meaning, a gang means instill fear of groups. So it's, like I just said, it's a fear-based programming. It's a survival-based programming. I believe its intention is to encourage you to isolate yourself, okay? To feel like nobody else understands you, nobody else is experiencing what you're experiencing. You are the only targeted individual. Nobody else is experiencing that. It's like to weaken our sense of community, right? And to pretty much push that whole narrative of like separateness, like we're separate, okay? And to trigger PTSD, to trigger fight or flight, to lower your frequency, okay, and to keep people distrustful of a collective power. So when people hear gang, their nervous system contracts probably, or when you think about the term gang stalking or targeted individual or whatever other names people have come up with to describe this experience, okay, it's still a attack on your nervous system and your emotional body, your ethereal body, okay? So that contraction is useful for control systems. So I feel like this is why we kind of have to not view your new perspective or new awareness as a bad thing. It should be observed. It should be, you should make yourself aware of the frequency, but not totally reactive to it. Okay, so it's important that we stay in observation of what we're experiencing and not identifying with that experience. Okay, so Gang meaning in gang meaning in an ancestral and bloodline meaning, it means families that act like gangs. Okay, so they enforce loyalty, they punish individuality, they use shame and fear, they project curses. Okay, they repeat generational trauma. The family gang, okay, is the first gang most people ever meet and experience, which I've explained before. You know, if you want to understand gang stalking, bullying, harassment, stalking, oppression, all of the things, I can guarantee you can get first understandings from that based off your family dynamic, because most people have a toxic family dynamic. Okay, so the goal is to become aware of these behaviors and not identify or feel like you're just the only targeted individual that's experiencing that experience. Okay, so this ties into my teaching of the matrix family dynamic. Let's continue though. Okay, so astral meaning of gang. Okay, so this is like in a spiritual warfare aspect, a collective entity field. Okay, so it can manifest as astral parasites, okay, shadow pools, or what I would consider a shadow-like government, which is still parasitic and toxic, low frequency clusters. This is how you can experience this same frequency from two different individual places or things that don't know each other, not connected in no way, but the frequency and the energy feels the same. Okay, that's because it's spiritual. That's because it's a hive mind. It's a astral parasite. Okay, astral sorry, not astral. So we have unhealed collective trauma. Okay, is what we're experiencing when we perceive it as gang stalking. It's unhealed collective trauma. So these gangs can attach to communities. They can attach to bloodlines. It can attach to neighborhoods, organizations, institutions. Okay. This is why certain environments may feel hostile and some may not without a direct cause. It's just like a lingering parasitic shadow entity that lingers amongst us because of our collective shadows. Okay. This is why it's important for us to individually heal. But we're going to get into that. Okay. So basically it's a gang consciousness. It's a gang stalking consciousness. Okay. I feel like I got to use the bathroom already. Gang stalking consciousness. Okay. I feel like I got to use the bathroom already. Sorry, y'all. All right. So occult meaning. So that would be like group rituals. That would be collective intention, synchronized behaviors, and energy harvesting. That is what gang stalking looks like on an occult or dark occult meaning. Okay. So a gang is any system where individual energy is pulled into a hive-like structure. So this will also include corporations, religious groups, secret societies, social cliques, online mobs, or the army, the navy, things of that nature. It's still it's a hive-like structure. Okay. So all forms of energetic gangs. Gang stalking multi-dimensional definition in my terms will be, okay, a coordinated, energetic, psychological, or physical formation designed to disrupt or distort the target's field. This is where we feel like we are being targeted because technically it's your field that is perceived as a threat to a person that is still operating in a hive mind matrix mentality, which is rooted in fear. Okay. So it may involve people, group consciousness, unhealed collective shadows, systematic entities, astral interferences, environmental programming, okay, and community trauma loops. So it's not always literal people. Sometimes it's frequency moving in formation like a gang. So when we learn to see gang stalking as a multidimensional force, okay, we can stop fearing it and more so learn to observe what we are feeling, experiencing, seeing, okay? A gang only functions through collective energy anyway. Okay, so when we stop feeding it, it loses its formation. Once your frequency stabilizes, the gang dissolves like smoke. This matches perfectly with what I call frequency psychosis, observing, not collapsing, and then quantum cages and raising your frequency causing disruption. Okay, because there is a connection between gang stalking, collective matrix, hive mind, quantum physics, and then frequency psychosis. Okay, so I'm hoping that I'm able to break this down in a way where you guys can understand what it is that I'm saying. Okay, but fear not, fear not. You are not alone, but I do want to kind of expand the mind of anybody willing to listen about, not perceiving the negative experience as necessarily bad, okay? It doesn't have to be perceived as something bad unless it's a direct threat to you. Then that's a whole nother ball game. If somebody's trying to actually attack you physically, that's a whole nother situation. You need to take charge immediately. But if it's just like a lurking, like, negative gang, like, attack where if it's settled, it's more covert, then the objective is to observe that and not identify with it and not make yourself the target. Okay, because think collective wise, right? Think group wise. Like, this is just what they do. It's a low frequency fear based hive mind force. And if that person has not integrated their shadows, then they can be possessed by that force. Gratitude, y'all. Greetings. Okay. So let me move on. And I feel like I need to go to the bathroom, y'all. I used the bathroom before I got on live. I gotta go back up to my notes, okay? Now, frequency psychosis is what happens when a person's inner trauma, unresolved fear, and dysregulated nervous system collide with a spiritual awakening or frequency shift. So their consciousness is expanding, but their subconscious is still operating from survival mode. So it's almost like they're becoming aware quicker than they are integrating their shadows and healing. Okay, so this creates an inner split. One part rising, the other part gripping onto old fear-based programming. So ultimately, when I hear people speak about gang stalking or being targeted individuals, without any like clarity of why, I automatically know that it's a lot. It has a lot to do with them not integrating those fear programmings and elevating from that either some type of trauma in your subconscious mind or just a limited belief system, okay, that has not yet evolved. So when someone interprets energetic pressure or synchronicities or rapid shifts through fear, Their subconscious tries to protect them by building a mental cage. But that cage is not spiritual protection. It is a self-created limitation that blocks expansion. Okay, so let's break that down a little bit more. Fear collapsed the quantum field. Okay, when your vibration rises, your field expands. When you panic, your field collapses. Okay, so fear compresses your energy so tightly that you can no longer access higher perceptions, intuition, or neutrality. All higher insight gets filtered through survival programming. Okay, so this is what creates the illusion of being targeted. Okay, not because nothing is happening, but because fear distorts meaning of it. So this is why I say we have to observe what we're experiencing and not identify with what we're experiencing. Okay, because all of this is merely an illusion, right? It's all energy. So if we think energetically, then you would learn how to perceive things as something to learn from. Okay, not necessarily to fear. Okay. So what the person is really experiencing, or what you could really be experiencing, is energetic sensitivity increasing. Okay. Outside stimuli becoming louder. So now you're becoming more sensitive to energy or energies that you were not sensitive to or aware of because of trauma and fear-based programming. So now your senses are more, your spidey senses are tingling. Okay, that's basically what's happening. You're becoming more aware of everything. Okay, so intuition is sharpening. Your subconscious wounds are resurfacing. And this can be generational as well. Okay, so dimensional overlaps as well. So higher and lower states are touching. Okay, but fear will reframe all of that as a threat. Okay, fear creates closed loops of perception. So a quantum cage isn't literally, it's perceptionally. Okay, it's when the mind locks itself into hypervigilance, scanning, pattern hunting, catastrophizing, and looping thoughts. Okay, so this loop is a trauma response, not a spiritual message per se. Okay, not everybody's out to get me, I'm the target. Okay, because like I said, if we put it quite frank, we all targets by way of this shadow government. It doesn't want anybody to awaken. It doesn't want anybody, to obtain higher consciousness, raise your frequency, think clearly, trust your intuition. You know what I mean? Use your spiritual gifts. It doesn't want any of those things to happen. And it definitely isn't too fond of us encouraging others to do the same, right? So that would technically make us all targeted individuals, right? By way of this shadow false illusion government that's still being created by the collective shadow. So when we look at it in its entirety, technically the collective shadows is the ones that is keeping the shadow government active. Okay. Let me see. You say, I guess that's why I noticed this shady shit my mom be doing. Yeah, because it's a frequency. Okay. So this is what I called, what we're dissecting is what I call frequency psychosis and a quantum cage by way of gang stalking or considering yourself a targeted individual. Okay. So once the subconscious enters this closed loop state, every neutral event becomes interpreted as confirmation, right? So it's similar to how anxiety or PTSD amplifies threat perception. So except, this is happening while the spiritual senses are open. So everything becomes magnified. This is why the person feels watched or targeted, or this is why you may feel watched or targeted, or even I have felt watched or targeted at a certain point to where it totally consumed my life. Okay. And then I had to learn that it's just a hive mind frequency. It's not personal. It's just doing what it does. It's low vibrational. It's fear-based. So it's seeking, if you are raising your consciousness and your frequency, then its intent is to lower your frequency by its design, because it's a low vibrational entity just being what it is. So do we necessarily consider it bad or good? Not necessarily, not in quantum physics. In quantum physics, things just are. They just be, right? They just is what it is. Okay? Now, and that's not to say that it's not parasitic or, it acts as a virus, because it still absolutely does. It doesn't serve humanity. It doesn't, it isn't in alignment with divine law and order or, nature. It's all things opposite of that. But also in quantum physics, it teaches that, once you become aware of something, that's when you give it your consciousness and awareness. You get what I'm saying? So it doesn't exist until you become aware of it. If you don't pay it any attention, it doesn't exist. So if you don't identify with the gang stalking or being a targeted individual and thinking everything and everybody is out to get you, then technically you take away its power. It doesn't exist, because it's literally only existing on a dimension and a frequency that it does. You get what I'm saying? It doesn't evolve unless we reclaim our power collectively. Then we can evolve. Sometimes I feel like I'm rambling, but I know somebody got to be getting what I'm saying. Y'all got to be getting what I'm saying. Because what I want you to understand is that you don't have to fear. You have to choose love over fear. And if you're actively choosing love over fear, then that means you're not allowing fear-based programming to control you and your perception and your experience. You observe it. Oh, I see that this is a hive mind individual that's still programmed to the matrix fear programming. You don't identify with it. You don't give it too much energy, and definitely not too much attention, because you don't want to pay attention, literally pay attention to things that don't serve you, right? They don't operate from the law of reciprocity. So it's not going to serve you. It's not going to be an equal give and take exchange. So you observe it, but you don't rearrange your whole existence to pay it attention. Okay? Just see it, and that's that. I see the synchronicities too. And it's all about perception. So if you're constantly seeing, like some people say they might see a whole bunch of red cars, then they see white cars, then they see somebody in a black car tailgating them, and now it's a lot of things that people say they be experiencing. That's not to take away from what you are experiencing. Okay, but you are becoming aware of the programming that has always been there. You just evolve from that programming, or evolving from that programming. I'm here to help you not get stuck in frequency psychosis, okay? Because that's what happened when people get so wrapped up and consumed in the experiences that that's been existing. It's been there the whole time, right? Because remember, we're talking about quantum physics and frequency psychosis. Quantum physics teaches us that it's been there until it becomes. How do I want to say this? It's always been there. Either you just haven't been aware of it, but it's always been there. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, let me move on. Let me move on before I start. Gratitude Valley. She said she watched a video on YouTube. Gratitude. I was gonna go live on YouTube, but I said I'm gonna just post this live to YouTube. Okay. I'm not gonna do both today. I'm gonna just post this live to YouTube. All right, so let's move on, because I can always stop and talk, but I want to get this done. So expansion triggers the unhealed layers. Okay, so you're very aware now. When someone raises their frequency, they begin integrating higher levels of consciousness. But these higher frequencies automatically expose lower frequencies within you. Okay, so it's like shining a bright light in a dark room, right? Now you've become full of light, and suddenly you see everything that was hidden. Okay, so you see how that kind of can connect to quantum physics as well. Okay, everything is particles. When we think about that too, like, it's like if everything is particles and it doesn't become solid until you become aware of it and you see it, then that kind of gives you a new perspective on our experiences, right? So raising your frequency equals raising awareness. Raising awareness equals confronting unintegrated wounds. Okay? So this is where that thin line between higher consciousness and expansion can meet frequency psychosis, because your old fear-based programming the ego may try to hinder you from integration. Okay, so that integration is raising awareness by confronting unhealed wounds, traumas, fears, limited beliefs. Okay, so if the person interprets the discomfort as external threats, but what they are actually experiencing is a subconscious reorganization. So it's not necessarily a threat. It's your consciousness reorganizing itself. Okay, it is the ego disillusion. Your ego is now, dying, or how they say die to the ego, or less reactive. Good. Your ego is pretty much, you're gaining your power back. And the ego is not going to go out without a fight, which is your old self that you created by way of survival. Okay? Surviving your environment. Emotional detox is what's happening as well. Nervous system recalibration. Old trauma resurfacing for release. And like I said, this could be generational as well. But, okay, if you're not grounded, this feels like something is after you. It will make you feel like you're targeted. Okay, it will make you have anxiety and PTSD and things of that nature, because you're not grounded. But technically, nothing is really after you. Remember, it's a frequency. It's a fear-based frequency. Okay? And it's more so of the call is coming from inside the house. It's more so something inside of you needs to come up and be integrated and brought to light. So when you have these experiences, the key is to pay attention to which emotion you are feeling in that experience. Okay? That's not to say what you're experiencing is not happening, but what emotion is being triggered. For example, if somebody is stalking you, right? And they riding past your house. You just keep seeing the same car ride past your house all fast, and then they slow down and speed up, more than likely you're going to start feeling unsafe, right? You're going to be fearful, and you start to feel unsafe. So what the universe is trying to reveal to you is maybe you have some feelings and emotions of being unsafe by way of your environment in childhood, some type of trauma that took place that made you feel unsafe within your own body. And subconsciously, it's a program that your nervous system is responding to. So instead of identifying with the experience itself, learn to read your emotion that you feel in that experience. And don't become that experience. But do protect yourself. That's just an example. If you feel like you're being stalked and harassed by somebody, take the necessary steps to protect yourself. But this is an emotional and frequency war. So we have to learn to think energetically first. And pay attention to your nervous system and how your body is responding to that experience, because that is what you are needing to integrate and heal. Okay? So when you panic, that prevents integration. That prevents the healing process. That prevents you alchemizing that lower frequency emotion to a emotion that serves you. Okay? To where, you start to panic so much that you go into fear, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's the programming. Okay? So this is why I say do not panic. Fear not. Do not panic. Do not panic. Okay? Pain freezes the integration process. Okay? So instead of looking at things from why is this happening to me, look at it from a lens of what can I learn from this experience right now? I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling fearful. I'm not feeling safe. What do I need to learn here? This is a self-discovery journey, okay? You technically only exist. You, okay? I know that's kind of trippy to think and wrap around your mind, but nobody actually exists for real. Okay? When we think about the quantum physics side of it, okay? Nobody actually really exists. It's all energy and consciousness. Okay? Now, do your research. Don't take my word for it. I always tell y'all that. Now, when you panic, the nervous system shuts down clarity. Now confusion is at play. Now your nervous system all discombobulated, confused, you stress, you panic, all type of things going through your mind. All type of things. And you thinking the worst because fear creates illusions. False evidence appearing real. Fear creates false illusions. Okay? The subconscious goes into self-protection. So any ways that you use to survive environments as a child, now that's activated, okay? The ego strengthens, right? Because now you beside yourself and the ego is your false self then stepped in. Okay, instead of you being your grounded, safe self, fully trusting the universe, okay? And trusting that you are safe in that moment. You said, I'm passing my own test? Yes. Okay, so the quantum field collapses totally. Okay, once you in panic mode, the quantum field collapsed. Okay? Intuition becomes distorted. Your perception becomes distorted. And now you have fully integrated back with that fear frequency. Okay? So when I say love over fear, I'm talking about multidimensionally, interdimensionally. Okay? Love over fear has to be a conscious and subconscious choice. Okay? Fear becomes the lens of interpretation. So in this state, you cannot tell the difference between intuition or anxiety, sensitivity versus a threat, right? Because now you're in fight or flight. Fight or flight, you're not grounded. Or freeze or fawn, fear, okay? Synchronicities versus surveillance. Maybe what you're experiencing is synchronicities. Maybe it's not that somebody's just watching you and surveillancing you. Maybe it's synchronicities. That's not to take away from the fact that people are creepy and they do spy on people and they just watch people, they harass people, they stalk people. I'm not saying that. Because what they say, two things could be right at once. I'm saying that maybe when you are in panic mode and fight or flight, that your perception is distorted and the way you are perceiving your experience could be distorted. Okay. Awareness versus hypervigilance. So the panic is the trap. So if this frequency, this hive-like parasitic frequency can get you to panic and get you outside of yourself, no longer feeling safe in your own body, then you fell for the trap. Okay? Your quantum field just collapsed and you went back into that old programming and the frequency of fear. Okay? So the panic is the trap. Not an external thing, because the war is on your energy and on your frequency. And when we keep that in mind, we stop identifying with the experience and we start observing our 3D experience. Because this 3D is just a manifestation of what's happening spiritually, energetically. So being targeted is really a feeling in your own field. You have more power than you think. You have more power, way more power than they've been led the collective to believe. Okay? You can wield energy at your will at any given moment. I'm talking about any given moment. So fear not. X marks the spot. All right? Fear not. So most targeted individuals' experiences come from internal frequency shifts. Okay, so not external agendas per se. Because remember, this is a hive mind frequency that's just doing what this toxic hive mind frequency does until people reclaim their shadows and integrate it. Okay, that's the only reason it exists. Okay, thank you. That's the only reason it exists. Greetings. So when you are expanding spiritually, your field becomes more sensitive, more porous, and more perceptive. Okay, so it's energies that you are not aware of that's been there the whole time. Okay, and it feels like energies you haven't felt before, but it's just that you wasn't conscious and aware of it, but it's always been there. Okay, so if the person has, or if a people have unresolved trauma, the collective has unresolved trauma, their mind will use this only as framework that it knows, which is I am unsafe, which is trauma. Okay, trauma tells you you're unsafe. Abuse have told you you are unsafe. Your environment have told you that you are unsafe. That could be from childhood. That could be from any type of system. Okay? Any type of system that has made the collective feel unsafe. Relationships, dynamics, systems, which is this whole system, because we live in a system in society that wants to and has been oppressing. Okay? That's slavery. Anytime a system is oppressing the collective, it's still. Okay, so this is why most people automatically go to I am unsafe in panic mode due to trauma. All right. So that turns into energetic patterns into signs, right? So we start to correlate the signs with I'm unsafe. The synchronicities with I'm unsafe. Noise sensitivities with I'm being attacked. Emotional release into threats, okay? Disruptive healing moments into harassment. Nervous system activations into being watched. So again, it goes back to our perception, correct? It goes back to our perception. So it is a real sensation, but it's not real in cause. Okay? Fear is unhealed subconscious programming. Panic is unresolved trauma. Clarity is integration. And then observation is mastery. Who remembers the what I told y'all the other day, the acronym for power? Who remembers that? If you remember it, put it in the chat. If don't nobody say nothing in like 2 minutes, I'm going to just tell y'all. But y'all got to remember this, because this is what helped me. Okay? This is what helps me stay in my power as I'm going through ascensions and, higher consciousness, and remaining grounded and observant in my experience without identifying with my experiences, right? Or my circumstances, or whatever I experience in the 3D. Okay? You have to stay in your power and your knowing. Okay? So the acronym for power is to practice observing without excessively reacting. Okay? So you have to practice observing your experiences without excessively reacting as well, because you don't want to give out too much energy to a hive mind, toxic groupthink, individuals, or frequencies that is just seeking who it can devour, siphon from, right? And be used as a supply, because that's what it is. It's parasitic, right? It's a parasitic frequency that the collective has created. And we want to be quite frank about it, by way of trauma. Okay, by way of the need to want to control, what we may call narcissists, or, there's so many different names, karmics. Okay, it's all the same. And that it's rooted in trauma and fear. Okay. So someone who is truly raising their frequency will stay calm. They will stay neutral. They will stay observant. They will stay grounded. They will allow the integration. Let the subconscious rewire itself. Okay. Yes. Practice observing without excessively reacting. Thank you, Frank. And let me give y'all the root meaning of integration too, because I feel like I'm saying that, but I want y'all to really, really understand what that means. Okay? So the root meaning of integrate, Latin root meaning is integrer. Okay? And then integer. So integer means to make whole. It means to restore. Okay? So when I say you are supposed to be integrating those frequencies, okay? Because though you're experiencing what you're experiencing, because it's something that you need to look at and identify within yourself and integrate that. Okay, so there's fragments, okay, within your frequency, your auric field, okay, your energy that needs to be made whole again. So that's what I mean when I say integrate. So we are individually and collectively integrating shadows within ourselves. And so, as within, so without, micro, macro, you get what I'm saying? So we're actively doing that now for those who are seeking healing, seeking higher consciousness, and things of that nature. That's what we are doing. But there are a lot of people who are not, and which is the reason why we have this shadow government, because people don't want to heal and integrate their shadows and heal trauma. Okay, heal the trauma. Okay, so someone who is not yet healed, they will panic, they will misinterpret signals, some will some will become hypervigilant, create stories, or collapse their fields, okay? Trap themselves into the fear narrative. So this is why I say this is why, hold on, it lets me know that people have more healing. Right, okay, because I have my own notes, okay, y'all, I'll be writing stuff. Okay, typing just anything. So this is how I know when people speak about gang stalking and being a targeted individual sometimes, it pretty much just exposes the fact that they have more healing to do, because it's all about perception and perspective. Okay, so gang stalking like sensations are often a sign of spiritual awakening, nervous system dysregulation, trauma resurfacing, the subconscious shedding old identities, and expanded awareness hitting old fear programming. Okay? It's not necessarily a sign of actual danger, like I said, unless somebody's actually trying to harm you. That's something different. Okay? So the quantum cage that I was speaking about earlier is the ego trying to stay alive. Okay? So when the higher self expands, the ego feels threatened. The ego uses fear to pull the person back into familiar densities. The cage is made of fear-based thoughts, survival programming, unprocessed trauma, limited beliefs, old identity structures, okay? It is not an enemy. It is a protection mechanism that needs updating, okay? So it's time to evolve. It's time to make yourself whole again. It's time to override that outdated programming that no longer serves you, okay? Healing dissolves the cage. Integrations open the field, okay? It creates a direct line from you to source, like a Wi-Fi connection, free of distortions from you to source. It opens your field, okay, to receive downloads and upgrades, okay? Observing keeps the field coherent. Fear collapses it. Okay? Now, let's see. The mechanics, the metaphysics, and the unseen structure of what I was just explaining. Y'all, I'm gonna have to go take a bathroom break, y'all. Hold on. I can't hold it no more. All right, y'all. Your girl is back. Let's see where we left off at. Okay, so again, this teaching is about gang stalking, frequency psychosis, or what I coined frequency psychosis, and quantum physics. And it's probably gonna have to be a part 2 here, because this is a very complex topic. Okay, but I'm doing my best to kind of condense it as best I can. Okay, so inner knowing and your integration of frequency. Okay, so panic is not an emotion, it's a collapse of the quantum field. Okay, so when a person panics, they're not feeling scared per se, they are collapsing their energy field through sudden contractions. Okay, so this contraction does 3 things. It shuts down the intuitive channels. It activates stored trauma frequencies and magnifies external interference signals. Okay, so when the field collapses, perception narrows. When perception narrows, every vibration feels like a threat at that point. Okay, when every vibration feels like a threat, the mind builds its own narrative. And that narrative is built on with whatever programming you have stored in your subconscious mind. So if it's fear-based, it'll start building that. Okay, it'll start creating a narrative around fear-based limited beliefs. Why? Because you haven't integrated those fear-based limited beliefs. How do you override those fear-based limited beliefs? You have to start talking to yourself. You have to start telling yourself, I am safe. You have to ground yourself. You have to get out into nature. You have to analyze your own inner thoughts. Do they serve my highest good? Is it rooted in fear? Does it make me feel safe or secure? What am I feeling, right? Okay, because we are constantly creating our reality. And that's basically what I'm getting at. If you have a fear-based programming in your subconscious mind, then you're going to perceive everything from that perception. So it's up to you to integrate those thoughts and transform. The Bible said the renewing of your mind. You have to renew your mind. You have to renew your thinking. You have to override all of the negative self-talk and negative beliefs. And then you will start co-creating with the universe in a higher frequency or in a higher awareness and higher consciousness. Because either way it go, you're creating with the universe. Either way it go, whether you're aware of it or not. And see, the matrix and the people in so-called power and positions, they understand this concept. This is why they push fear on the collective. This is why, because they know that our energy is what's creating the illusions. It's what's creating, whatever it is that they want the collective to create that'll keep them in positions of power and hierarchies. Okay, so it even ties into that. So it's very important that we learn to reprogram our subconscious mind. Pay attention to your thoughts on a daily. Pay attention to what you're thinking when you wake up in the morning. What are you thinking about when you go to sleep at night? Whose thoughts are you allowing to enter into your field? Right? Every thought is not necessarily yours, right? Because we are in a quantum field. So you can get thoughts from anywhere. You don't have to identify with them thoughts. You can observe them thoughts. You can cancel those thoughts if you want. Oh no, that's not the reality. That's not what I want to experience. That's not the reality I'm trying to create. I'm more than a conqueror. I'm not a victim. I'm victorious, right? I am safe. I'm divinely guided and protected. If you don't know nothing else, say that. I'm divinely guided and protected. Okay? Because you don't want your mind to start building narratives around old programming. All right? So, the narrative becomes the quantum cage. Okay? And once the cage forms, all incoming information is interpreted through that cage. And see, this is what they want you to be in, a quantum cage. I'm here to give you the key so you can unlock yourself and get the fuck out that cage. Okay? Here's the key. This is frequency psychosis, what I explained. But I'm here to free you from that. Now, gang stalking is often the subconscious responding or reacting to an unfamiliar bandwidth. Okay? When someone is raising their frequency, the field becomes sensitive, open, exposed. The body begins to perceive the shifts, the synchronicities, the patterns, the timeline collapsing, the timelines overlapping, old identities dissolving, new ones forming, energetic interference from people who cannot resonate with that new frequency. A timeline shift, a quantum leap. Okay? To the unhealed subconscious, this feels like danger. But what's really happening is you're quantum leaping and you now becoming aware of that reality shift. That timeline collapsing, the old timeline, old programming collapsing, and you're literally aware of it happening. So that's what's happening. So if you still got limited beliefs, then you're going to believe that it's a negative thing. It's a negative experience. You're targeted. All hell is breaking loose. My life is falling apart. And that's seemingly what happens when you are ascending and you are quantum leaping. Okay? You're integrating shadows. Things that don't serve that next ascension collapses. It falls. Okay? And it looks like destruction. And it may make you feel like you need to panic and be fearful, but fear not. X marks the spot. Spirit told me to say that, so I'm just saying it. Fear not. You are safe. Okay? Fear not. Now, not because it is danger, but because the subconscious only recognizes familiar patterns. So when a person elevates beyond what their nervous system is used to, the subconscious flags everything as a threat. So that could be people, movement, glances, cars, numbers, shadows, voices, and random events suddenly feel coordinated. What I hear a lot of people saying that experience what we have coined gang stalking or being attacked, okay, is this voice to skull, or what I talked about in my last live was sonic warfare. So that's like vibrational warfare, and you know, it's just the different layers of gang stalking basically. But what I'm getting is that a lot of times when you may be hearing voices, okay, that's what society would want to call schizophrenia or something like that, when you're hearing other people's voices in your head. But could it be that maybe that's just a spiritual gift that you have to hear voices and hear, you know, do it have to necessarily be a bad thing that you do hear voices? When you're channeling, you're going to hear voices. I naturally channel. So I know that this is the difference is between whether you perceive it from a fear-based mind or love and safety, security. Okay? Just wanted to say that. Hold on, because I got to do this puzzle piece thing. All right. Now, the subconscious is scanning for proof of the threat if it already believes it exists. This is the beginning of the quantum cage. All right. So fear acts like the magnet. Fear acts like the magnet lens. So in quantum physics, the term would be fear increases particle density. Okay. Awareness increases wave expansion. So when someone enters fear, their field becomes more dense. The denser fields attract denser frequencies. Denser frequencies amplify interference. The amplification feels like targeting, which creates more fear, which creates more densities, which creates more interference, or it attracts more interference. Because we are always creating our reality. Okay? What you focus on focuses on you. So if you have the fear seeds planted in your heart space, okay? Because your heart and mind works together. That's what's creating your reality. So if you got seeds of fear in your heart space, your heart chakra, it works together with your mind, your subconscious mind, and creates your reality. Okay? So once you start feeling like you're a target and you're fear-based thinking, you're magnifying all things fear. Because that's what you're focusing your attention on. And you just fell back into psychosis, frequency psychosis, because that's what it is. Okay? Now, this becomes the feedback loop. You find yourself hyper-focused on that feedback loop. I'm a target, I'm a target, I'm a target. Gangstalking, gangstalking, gangstalking. Everybody's against me. When really, that's you attracting that which you believe and what you're programming, what you have programming in your own mind. Okay? So it is not necessarily a mental illness. And I'm not no professional, so I'm just saying. All right? I'm just a guide. So this becomes the feedback loop, and it is not a mental illness. It's an energetic mechanic, okay, or mechanics. Frequency psychosis happens when the conscious mind ascends faster than the subconscious. So this also happens when people may get a whole bunch of knowledge and information, but are not integrating them shadows. It's unbalanced. Okay? Sir, these experiences that you're having, that we're perceiving as gangstalking and being targeted individuals, it's supposed to be initiations for your spiritual ascension. Knowledge and wisdom is supposed to be evolving together. Not getting a bunch of knowledge and then not integrating that experience, because now you're creating a unbalance and you're ultimately creating a collapse within your ascension. Okay, I hope that makes sense to somebody, because this is why we have a lot of people who get knowledge, but you can still sense ego, and what I call spiritual ego. Okay, because they're not obtaining the wisdom needed and the integration needed with the knowledge and the spiritual initiations. Okay? Now, ascension is not ascension is expansion. So we can look at it as like you're rising, or you can look at it as you're expanding. However you want to look at it. Okay? You still have to integrate shadows at the same expansion as the knowledge you're receiving. Okay, so the conscious mind expands quickly. So you'll have new realizations, new clarities, new spiritual awarenesses, new sensitivities, right? New energy perceptions. But the subconscious mind is older, is slower, and built on survival. Okay? So when the conscious mind expands, the subconscious is still programmed for danger. The gap between the two creates distortion. Okay? Hallucination-like perceptions. Okay? Interpretation, sorry. Hallucination-like interpretations. Paranoia. Hypervigilance. Symbolic misreading of reality. Self-centered perception. So everything is about me, right? Which means everything's targeting me. Okay? So I want you guys to understand that what you're experiencing is real, but let's dissect the science behind why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. So I want to encourage you to not look at it from a fear-based perspective. That is what the point is here. Okay? You're welcome, Jimmy. The person is not making it up. Like I just said, you're not making it up. You are experiencing that. But your perception is what's making you feel like you're targeted. Okay? So this is why healing eliminates that phenomenon. So not because the interference is stopped, but because the interpretation changes. Okay? So the quantum cage, which I explained earlier, has a structure. Once formed, the cage is held together by fear, hyper-awareness, meaning making, unresolved trauma, subconscious survival programming, unintegrated shadows, emotional fragmentation, ego identity, okay, attachments, codependency, okay? The cage is not external. It's in your mind trying to protect you from the unknown, okay? So it's projecting threats, scanning patterns, leaking unrelated events, creating narratives, reinforcing narratives, building identities around that narrative, and then ultimately defending that narrative. So the more the person identifies with being a target, the stronger the cage becomes. Okay, so we want to even come out of that gang-stalking programming that's rooted in fear. Okay? We want to come out of that. It's happening. Now what? What can I learn from this? What emotions do I need to integrate? What energies do I need to integrate? Where do I need to evolve? What do I need to learn from this experiences? What old traumas need to come up and expand, okay? And transform. Exactly. You versus you. Exactly. Yes. You versus you. That's exactly what it is. Okay. Now, the raising frequency is the trigger. So when you raise your frequency, that is the trigger, right? The gang stalking like experiences often happen around awakening, not collapses. So if it's happening around awakening, then that means further investigations, more questions, more sitting with self, more groundedness, more reinforcing of thoughts that serve your highest good versus the fear-based programming, because you are reprogramming your subconscious mind in real time. Okay? So it's an awakening, not a collapse. That should tell you you're on the right path when you're receiving what we appear, or what would appear to be resistance. Don't get consumed in that resistance experience, okay? The collective is stopping there. That's what I'm getting. The collective is literally stopping there because you think that, you know, being the target is the threshold point. Like, no, it's more, right? It's actually not a bad thing. It means expansion, awakening, not collapse, not the end. Okay. Or it could be an end to a new beginning, not necessarily just an end, you know? Okay. So because raising frequency dissolves old timelines, it heightens sensitivities, it increases intuitive perception, it exposes energetic interferences, okay? It stretches the nervous system. It opens psychic channels. It raises awareness of unconscious human behavior. It allows multidimensional perception as well. So if a person is unprepared, the expansion feels like something is after me. Not because something is after you, but because their system cannot handle the amount of data they now perceive. Okay? So when you panic, it shows there is more healing and subconscious reprogramming needed. A regulated, healed, expanded field does not interpret interference as a threat. It interprets it as information, as data to analyze. Information does not create panic. Information creates mastery. So, what they say in the comments, you versus you. All right? So what's really happening? A misinterpreted ascension symptom. Mixed trauma activations. So mixed trauma activations filtered through an unregulated nervous system. Compressed into quantum feedback loops and projected outward as perceived coordinated threats. So when fear dissolves, the entire structure disappears. Okay? It collapses. The fear expands. The subconscious relaxes. The nervous system stabilizes. The narrative breaks. The feedback loops end. The energy returns to neutrality. Reality stops bending through distortions. And then you realize nothing was hunting you. I was hunting shadows created by my own unhealed frequencies. That is what's happening, you guys. Divine Collective. Now, trauma fragments create open loops in an energy field. Say copy. Okay? So trauma fragments creates open loops in your energetic field. So every unhealed trauma creates fragments, okay? That's an energetic shard. So it's like, it's distortions, okay? Fragments vibrate at frequencies of the memory, not the present moment. Each fragment is a loop of unintegrated emotions, a magnetic field seeking resolution, a point of vulnerability in the aura, a doorway where signals can enter, a filter the mind sees through, aka triggers. Okay, so we want to sum all that up. The fragments are the triggers. The triggers are what the matrix used to attack or use as openings to lower your frequency by way of your nervous system and your emotions. Okay, so even then, so we don't have to perceive that as a threat. It could just be, what more work did I need to do on myself so that I won't react from a fear-based programming or from a, panic or feeling unsafe. It's more so about you. What do you need to heal? Okay? So this is why unhealed people perceive patterns that are not fully real. Okay? This is why. So not because they're imagining things, but because the fragments distorts how information is received and interpreted. Okay? So when the frequency rises, these fragments get activated because they cannot ascend with you unless they dissolve. Okay, so that activation could feel like being watched, being monitored, being judged, being unsafe, being exposed, being targeted. Why? Because now it's wide open. It's light shedding on it. You know, you aware of it now. Okay, so it feels like exposure. Okay, but it's often fragments surfacing. Okay, you say, okay, so trauma fragments act like little antennas. So each fragment sends out energetic signals. Right, an open wound. Exactly. So is this safe? Is someone watching me? Should I brace myself? Who's going to hurt me this time? What should I expect to happen this day? You know, am I about to be judged or punished? It's pretty much how you overthinking in a negative way. And then you find yourself in that overthinking loop. Okay. These signals pull in metric frequencies. So your emotions are really frequencies, right? Your emotions are frequencies. So when you start to think low thoughts about yourself, or you start to question from a fear-based programming, you're attracting those frequencies, because those frequencies, you have to be resonating with those frequencies in order for them to be made manifest in your reality. You get what I'm saying? So if you're thinking, oh, I'm depressed, or you're feeling, or your frequency is that of depression, it attracts to you like a magnet, because now you resonating with that frequency, right? So now you finna experience that of depression because you resonating with the frequency of depression, with the frequency of fear. I mean, I won't say negative, all low vibration frequencies are rooted in fear. It is branches of fear anyway. Okay, so your emotions is pretty much the pinpoints to tell you what branches of fear are you resonating with that is manifesting in your reality. It pretty much gives you a map. Your emotions is the map to your frequency. So when you have an opening, that means you need to do something to close that opening or make that opening whole, right? Okay? So that's where the integration comes in. That's where the making that fragment whole again comes in. That's where the inner work comes in at. Okay? Now, these signals pull in matching frequencies, but they also distort neutral experiences into threat interpretations. So this is how you can perceive cars driving by as a threat, people looking at you as surveillance, synchronicities as coordination, repeated numbers as confirming that, right? Noises, signals, random interactions. Okay, because keep it in mind that nothing is a coincidence. Why is nothing a coincidence? Because everything is resonating on a frequency. If we think of it from that perspective, then nothing is really a coincidence. It's just frequencies make and manifest on the frequency that is resonating on. That makes sense? I hope so. Because the frequency's just doing what the frequencies does. Okay? The emotions just doing what the emotions does on its frequency. Okay, somebody said yeah. Okay. All right. So they're reading reality through the frequency of fragmentation. So our brains are, what do you say? Our brains are transmitting a frequency. Exactly. That's basically we all are. We all are transmitting a frequency and resonating with a frequency. Okay, we all are. It's about what you can choose. Okay, so I'm also exposing to you or making aware to you that you can choose the frequency that you want to vibrate on consciously. You can, and subconsciously, but you have to program your mind to do that, your subconscious mind to do that. And that requires your work. That doesn't require you praying to anybody to help that. No, you have to integrate that yourself. Okay? Okay, greetings. Once the fragment is integrated, the entire pattern disappears. Just like that. Yes, self-reflection and self-correction vibrate high. Exactly. But see, that frequency don't line. Okay? So if you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if your frequency don't match the knowledge that you preach, then you're going to experience what your frequency is resonating on. So this is also the point that I'm trying to make. The universe boomerangs back to you the frequency that you are resonating with. Nothing more, nothing less. That's just the way it goes. And it's up to you to utilize that knowledge and wisdom. It's up to you. And it's not. Somebody say it's not easy to do. It is not. But making yourself aware, like Valley Girl said, self-awareness is a superpower. It's up to you to utilize and practice what you know. It is a lifestyle. Okay? Oh, somebody just said, I didn't even see that. Somebody say, apply what you learned to your lifestyle. Exactly. It is a lifestyle. This is not a one and done type of thing. Okay? So the subconscious is programmed to detect patterns, not truth. Understand that. Understand that. The subconscious mind don't know what's fake or real. That's the beauty of it. When you really think about it, there's actually beauty in that. That should make you really want to be the author of your subconscious mind, the creator, or the master of your subconscious mind. And be conscious and aware of that, knowing that it don't know what's real or fake or the truth. Anyway, the subconscious doesn't care about accuracy either. It cares about the prediction. Prediction equals safety, right? So when the subconscious is overwhelmed by new frequencies, it starts stitching random events into a single story so it can feel in control. Okay? So this is what creates the paranoia and all of the things. Symbolic connections, everything connected to me feeling victim mentality or experience, okay? The subconscious is creating a story because the energy is too unfamiliar to remain storyless. That's just what it does. Okay, it's creating. So ascension widens the sensory bandwidth. Okay, you say the string green tea. Embrace the, what you say? Embrace the experience, release the fear. Okay, so ascension widens the sensory bandwidth. When the frequency rises, the senses are no longer limited to physical stimuli. So you begin perceiving emotional fields, thought currents, subtle body languages, micro expressions, energetic intentions, pressure changes, shifts in timelines, density versus lightness, psychic residue, shadow projections, energetic contracts. Okay, so now everything is online, right? Your sensories are doing what they supposed to do, sensor. Okay, and it's clear. It's a clear channel to these sensors. Okay, so to someone unprepared or unhealed, this feels like targeted, right? So you're not being targeted, you're becoming aware. This is about awareness. Okay, awareness feels like danger when your body only knows survival. Multidimensional awareness opens too fast when someone ascends quickly. Their consciousness expands faster than their nervous system can regulate. So it creates timeline bleeding, peace and abundance, synchronicity overload, intensified intuition, energetic sensitivity, increased awareness of deception, psychic overstimulation, symbolic meaning everywhere, and timeline jumps. This is natural, but it feels unnatural because now you're having to recalibrate yourself and be observant to what's happening, right? So the subconscious interprets all of this as a threat, but it's not. Okay, so we pretty much covered that. The quantum cage, we covered that too pretty much. It's not a punishment. It's just your subconscious saying, stop ascending so fast. You're going beyond the manage, or slow down, or the ego basically wants you to slow down and, you know, go back into your old timelines of where the ego was able to pretty much be the driver in your reality. Okay? So the cage was formed to protect you, not destroy you per se, but it's time to evolve from that cage, okay? So it's really about clarity. It's about not identifying with your experiences and observing, reading and decoding your emotions in your nervous system, right? Somebody say frequency of love. Maybe even listening to, obviously we need to be listening to something because, you know, certain musics don't help us evolve and expand our frequency. So listen to 528 hertz. Somebody left in the comments. Ground yourself. Go out into nature. Okay? Pay attention to what you're feeling. Your emotions are frequencies. So in knowing that, you want to practice vibrating on higher frequencies so that you could attract all things of that frequency that you wish to experience. This message is for everybody. I'm going to post this live to my YouTube for anybody that want to catch the replay here. But you have the blueprint. Okay? Your frequency is coherent. You just, you regulate your nervous system. Don't get so caught up in being attacked. You don't want to give too much energy in, I'm a targeted individual. Gang stalking. We don't want to settle our thoughts and beliefs there. You know what I mean? We're supposed to always be asking what, when, who, where, why. You know, how? Why am I experiencing this? Why do I feel like this? Because you don't want to like become spiritually indoctrinated or believing that you have to be subject to that experience and you can't evolve from that. You understand? You're never stuck. And hell, we all targets. Technically, if that's the case, right? Because this hive mind force, that's rooted in fear. This hive mind force of fear is just doing what this hive mind force of fear does on anybody that raises their frequency. And that's exactly what I'm getting at. Somebody say it controls our thoughts. Do it control your thoughts? Or are you giving it the power to control your thoughts? This is what I mean when I say question the questions. Is it somebody, are you giving your power away to an outside force to control your thoughts? This is why I say evaluate and analyze all thoughts that come to your mind, because they may not necessarily be yours. And why are you giving it the power to control your thoughts? This is why we cannot skip the healing phase. We cannot skip that phase, because you will victimize yourself by trying to skip over the healing phase and get it knowledge with no integration. You are only the thoughts that you feel like you want to become. Right? You should say you are not your thoughts. You are not technically your experiences either. What can you learn from your experience? So instead of saying I'm a targeted individual, what could you say you are? I'm an observer. I'm vibrating higher, or I'm ascending, because it's just resistance. But is resistance necessarily a bad thing because you experience resistance as you evolve? No. In quantum physics, nothing is neither good or bad. It just is. And then if you got people around you who haven't integrated their shadows, haven't healed, haven't done any work, and they're looking outside of themselves for validation, power, control, and they operate from that hive mind matrix programming, then they're automatically are programmed to want to reinforce that programming to all things around them. So technically, is that personal, or is it just their programming that you're witnessing that play? It's not personal then. It's not personal. Don't victimize yourself. Even if they project negativity on you, you are the controller of your reality. It's up to you to observe the fact that they're projecting negativity on you, and you have to shield your mind from even receiving that. You don't have to receive nobody's projections. That is a choice. That is a they problem, not a you problem. This is what I want y'all to understand. Stop victimizing yourself. Just because they project it, you don't have to receive it. Okay? And the only way the projections can work or make manifest in your reality is if you have fragments in your aura, your electromagnetic field. Okay? That's the only way. But if you have a sealed field and you question everything, you observe things, and you realize you have a choice to receive that transmission or not. When you observe people and their behaviors and what they do, what they think, how they move, you can either remove yourself from their space, detach, or just simply, go about your way. I mean, I'm trying to say this as simply as I can without using all of the words, all of the big things. You know, it's very simple. It's simple, but it's complicated for most. That makes sense. I can break it down very simple, but to do what I'm telling you in real time, it can be very difficult. Seal your field. Yes, it could be meditation. It could be meditation. It could be you being conscious of what you're experiencing at that moment and saying, that's not my energy. I don't receive it. Like literally say it out loud. Think it. And like, right, the art of detachment. Detachment is indeed an art. It's a skill. It's not personal. Again, it's not personal. How people treat you is not personal. It's just who they are. People only treat you according to the level of consciousness that they reside on. So if they haven't done any inner work, chances are they're going to be projecting onto you unhealed trauma, fear, pessimism. And if you ain't healed the same things within yourself, that's an open channel for that frequency to trigger you. Is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And see, when it happens in real time and you are triggered, your critical thinking turns off. I want to encourage you to, in the moment when you feel fear, panic, quickly ground yourself and remember, I am not this experience. What do I need to learn here? I'm feeling, right, breathe. Stay aware, count your fingers. Do some tapping, some face taps. Whatever you do, stay aware. That's what I'm telling you. Even in that moment. Because it's something you need to integrate and heal in that moment. We're all going to feel fear. Or we're all of the emotions. We're going to all feel them at some point. How you react in those emotions is on you. Okay? How you react. And I don't want you to keep spiraling downward. Because once you're triggered and that trigger is then activated, you start to spiral downward. Now you got to start all over again because that's what it feels like. Now you got to work your way up that emotional pole or emotional spiral. Back up. I'm telling y'all. I'm telling y'all what I know. It's not easy. But this is a part that you cannot skip in your ascension, in your expansion. It's regulating your nervous system. You have to regulate your nervous system. You have to heal in order to regulate your nervous system. You have to remove yourself from people, places, and environments that disrupts your nervous system. That sends you in a downward spiral. Okay? You have to do that. Then you will obtain emotional intelligence. I see somebody put that in the chat. But it starts with you regulating your regulating your nervous system. Greetings. So then once you reach a certain threshold in your ascension, the way that you used to get triggered no longer triggers you in that way. You're more aware of the trigger. You have the power over the trigger versus the trigger having power over you. Because what controls your emotions control you. Thank you. What controls your emotions, collective control you. I don't care what type of sonic warfare they're doing, military warfare they got going on. What else are we talking about? You feeling gangstalked, you feeling triggered. All of this still points back at you. Points back at you, collective. Thank you, Kimra. Okay? Your nervous system, your emotions are key. Don't get caught up in the gang stalking talk and targeted individual talk and ultimately get stuck in frequency psychosis. Okay? Anything else here, y'all? I'm happy that you guys stuck around for this lesson. Okay? This is technically part 2. So I'm going to post this on YouTube for those who haven't seen the whole thing. We are not in this alone. That is not what I stand for. We are not in this alone. I'm here to remind you what you already know. I'm here to ignite what's already within you. I'm here to give you the tools to use in your reality. Okay? Gratitude, Valley Girl. That's what I'm here for. So to think that you're alone, that's still victim mentality. You're not alone. And now you should ask yourself, why do I feel like I'm alone? Why? Is it betrayals? Is it past hurt? Because we all have been betrayed. And a lot of us in some of the worst ways. So I can understand why a person can say that you are alone. But the more you heal and the more you face these traumas and these negative thoughts and beliefs, the more you will realize that you were never alone to begin with. The universe is infinite. So, infinite in all of her ways. So you're never alone, technically. Unhealed trauma makes you believe all of those things. And sometimes people won't show up for you in a way that you think that they should. Sometimes they won't. And that's because they have, inner issues as well. Okay? So maybe the universe is telling you not to depend on man, not to depend on people. Surrender to the universe. Show up for yourself. Exactly. Love yourself. Be there for yourself. The same love that you're looking to get and support from everybody else, maybe you should give that to yourself. I don't have nobody sitting here telling me, get on, make sure you upload that content or make sure you show up for your collective. Make sure you do it. You know how long I sat here before I got on live? I had to talk to myself. It's like, get on live. I didn't want to do it today. But you got to choose to show up for yourself every day. Stop expecting other people to do it for you. That's why you're letting yourself down. People are not obligated to make you show up for you. They're not obligated to do that. And quite frankly, it's tiring as fuck. Have you ever dealt with a person that didn't have no determination, no get up, no go getter about themselves, nothing? And you gotta constantly remind them, or constantly push them, or constantly just doing everything for them, and they are a grown person. Nobody wants to do that. Okay? No. You got to have your own drive. Gratitude. You got to have your own drive. And once you heal yourself, you alchemize things that don't serve you, you raise your frequency, you step fully in your power and your purpose, it's going to be easy for you. At that point, you just, you're going to do what you love. And then you're going to attract what you are. And you're going to have better experiences. Okay? And really, when we in the matrix, is it really that we have no drive, or is it that we are fighting against oppression? Is it really procrastination, or is it really us rebelling against oppression? Feeling like we constantly got to show up in a system that don't serve us. Feeling like we constantly got to show up in a system that we are not getting anything back in return from. It's about perspective. Maybe it's just you was doing stuff that don't resonate with your soul, your purpose. That's what it really be. Because if it's something you love doing, you're going to get up every time. Even when you don't feel like it, you're going to do it every time. I get on here and I say I'm going to talk for an hour, and I've probably been to talk 2-3 hours and don't even realize it because I be in my zone. I be in my element. So the system robs you of your purpose and makes you a slave to their system, to their wealth, quote unquote, and their power. All right? Smear campaigns are hard to overcome only if you let it. Only if you let it. People gonna always have something to say about you. Remember, it's not personal. It's not personal. These are people who don't love themselves, people who are soulless, people who are broken, traumatized. When people go out their way to smear you and create campaigns and alliances, it's never really personal. It's just how they feel about themselves, and they're projecting it onto you. Remember, we were talking about projection earlier. It's up to you to receive that projection. You get to a point in your journey where you don't give a fuck about what people have to say about you, because I love me. I love me. You can't make me not love me because how you feel about me. That's a you problem, not a my problem. So again, that's what you tell yourself when situations like that happen, or people are gossiping about you, talking about you, smearing your name, coming for your character. It's not personal. That don't make you weak. That makes you smart. That makes you strategic on where you give your energy to. That makes you emotionally intelligent. When you can not feed into things that don't serve you. Y'all know how many times my name has been smeared on the internet, in real life? Don't care. Because it don't serve me to pay attention to it or respond. It don't. You know how many people have took my videos and poured their parasitic heart out? Talking about how they can't stand what I said. It was a lie, whatever the hell. Feel how you want. You entitled to that. Who am I to tell you not to be? My day kept going. It is what it is. And we have to be like that about every situation. Even the situations where it look like it's a bad situation, like, oh my God, what can you learn from that situation? It's not personal. You are a multidimensional being, a spiritual being having a human experience. It's something that you need to learn from this experience. So what is it? But people talking about you is it's small. That's small. And that's an attempt to get you to back in alignment with the matrix programming. Remember, that was the whole point of this live, is for us to dissect the different layers of gang stalking. Smear campaigns is a form of gang stalking. It attacks your spiritual body, your psyche, psychological warfare. Okay? So if somebody is slandering your name, that's to get you to submit. Why would they want you to submit? So that you could go back into that old programming of the matrix and not stand fully in your sovereignty, in your authenticity. Because your authenticity is a threat to that hive mind programming matrix system. That was the whole point. So when you know the play, when you know their game, and you know their manipulations, you know how it maneuvers, it's not personal. It's just what it's doing, what it does. It's to isolate you. Right. But are you really isolated, or is that an illusion? You're not really by yourself. We are all interconnected. You just have people that are interconnected on a low frequency, and so if we are experiencing gang stalking in the ways that we experience gang stalking, right, where we feel like we're targeted, and we have these many experiences that we can name, right? If we are, that just goes to show how low of a frequency most of the collectives operate from. That's what it really goes to show. That goes to show how much work and integration we need to do collectively. So healing trauma is something that we need to collectively be talking about then. Rise above all the attacks, yes. Or is it attacks? Remember, we're changing the language here. Is it attacks? Or does it feel like an attack? Or is it fear? Y'all, come on now. Talking about it's in your soul contract that you was going to be gang stalked. Sir, ma'am, we all be gang stalked. Anybody that's seeking higher consciousness, awareness, authenticity, high vibrations, you are a target to this lower frequency. Okay? Y'all, you missed the whole program. I'm going to need you to go to the beginning of this video when I post it to YouTube. Okay? It's all, somebody say it's all a form of mind control. It's all an attempt to pull you back into your old timeline. We all knew this before we came here. Some people get caught up in the matrix. Some people question the matrix. That's the only difference. The ones that are here definitely been questioning the matrix and got hella questions, want to heal, want more out of life, want to ascend. That's why you're here. That's why this message is resonating with you. I'm just here to remind you that you're no victim. You are not the only target. You are not alone. Gang stalking is multidimensional. Thank you. Gang stalking is multidimensional. It is a force. It is a low frequency force that is doing what low frequency force does. Okay? Fear attracts fear. Pessimism attracts pessimism. Despair attracts despair. Greed attracts greed. All of the negative, all of the low vibrational frequencies attract itself. You get what I'm saying? High vibrational frequencies attract high vibrational frequencies. It's not personal. Stop victimizing yourself. Stop victimizing yourself and calling yourself spiritual. But you just gonna stop at gang stalking? Once you start ascension, this is how I know a lot of y'all don't be ascending for real. Because once you start ascending and expanding your consciousness, you can't just stop. You got to keep going. See, a lot of y'all want to read books and get knowledge from other people and listen to this shit, but don't use it in your real life. You rather be a victim with knowledge, or you rather be a victim and read books and not use the tools. Just saying. Because once you start ascending, you don't have the choice to just be like, oh, I'm done. Something in you wants to keep going. And that don't, you're not a victim doing that, right? You're not a victim. No, you can't be. I don't think y'all hearing me. You can't be a victim and still ascend. You're going to find yourself in a loop. I want you to get out of the loop. You're not stuck and you're not a victim. It's in everybody's contract, if that's the case, to be gang stalked. It's in everybody's life contract, if that's the case. Okay? So we want to get out of that. Say that's what got you through it, because if you quit, they will win. And you will become a slave again. And if you're really against all forms of slavery, you will do the work. Because you don't want to be a slave. You don't want to be controlled. You want to be in your right mind, consciously creating your reality, expanding, and fully sovereign. That's what you want. So that is the drive. That's the fire that keeps you going. You can't just choose to stop once you choose to go and evolve. You can't just be like, oh, I'm done ascending. You got to use what you got to use it. Okay. The universe will put you to the test. Okay. You will have to utilize what you learn. Projecting love. And you will start to notice those who project love. Anybody that's still here, and you know what I'm projecting. I will hope that you are able to read through this screen and see what I'm projecting onto you. Okay? Because a person that has self-love and self-respect, they're going to project that. an emotionally intelligent being who has self-love and self-respect is going to be strategic with how they project that as well. Say evolving can be exhausting, but understanding and utilizing our powers is so rewarding. And it is. And it is. But I gotta go, y'all. It's about that time. Peace, love, power. Okay. I'll be posting this to YouTube. I will see you guys hopefully tomorrow. If not, I'll see you soon. Have a big, beautiful day on purpose with a purpose. Much love to y'all. Much love. Appreciate y'all so much. And I'll be back. Peace, y'all.